Welcome everybody to yet another life skill series here at Living Chassidus. We are so grateful to Rivka for joining us yet again. Everyone can be in touch with me if you'd like to watch the recording from last week and you missed it. But a big shout out to Rivka, and here's her book. So thank you very much for everyone joining. And I cannot wait to hear how we can be the CEO of our Mikdash Me'at. Also, if you'd like the worksheet for today, please personal message me or message me on here, and I will forward it to you on your phone. So can't wait to see you. Thank you, Rivka.
Okay. Hi, guys. Hi, everyone. I hope that everyone's well. I don't see faces. I see names. Anybody, same request as last week. Anybody who wants to put their camera on, it's a lot easier talking to faces than cameras, but if nicht, don't worry. Okay, so for those of you who were here last week, we did a nice bunch of pointers on how to run your home, the physical stuff, all the mess and everything. And for those of you that are on now, I'm interested to know if anyone has any success stories to share, any areas they're still working on. I'm more than happy to answer questions on that. So before I begin, just as a review, did anybody have any questions from last week? And if I can find my message box, yes, I found it. Now I'm looking at the message box if we have any comments from last week, and if not, we're going to jump right into today's talk. Okay, so don't worry if messages pop up in the box, I can address them as and when.
Just a heads up, I got some messages saying, I loved last week. Thank you so much.
It's always nice to inflate my ego. Thank you, Michal. So good. Okay, just get me a pen, please. Okay, so today we have a handout, and don't worry if you don't have it. And like Michal said, you can a message, thank you, or you can WhatsApp Michal, and she has the outline, the handout, just in case you want an outline. So today we're starting from the physical running of the home, and we're going into being the CEO of your Mikdash Me'at. So I like to say it's a little bit like being a pilot, but also the air stewardess, and also the one that cleans the chairs, and also the one that orders the peanuts and gets the airplane service. We do everything. So last week was a real focus on the physical running of the home. And today we're going into the task management. How do we remember to run our home? Now, I know we have some single girls here, and you have the same mechanics of running a home. You're sharing an apartment, however you're living right now. And it's a great thing for you to get under your belt now before life gets more complicated. And for those of you that are running your home and you're knowing that you're not working smart, you're working hard, the good news is that the past, like all the hard work you've done, doing it kind of upside down, is over. Now you're going to start to take on new things. And Michal's going to have the recording from this webinar. And my suggestion would be to try and take on one or two things when you finish tonight, like try and think what you can take on, and then slowly take on more in the areas. Remember, everybody asks me, like, where do I begin? And I always say in the areas that give you the most stress. Okay, so I'm going to go through, I'm going to give you an overview. I'm going to give you the 10 topics we're going to be going through. That way you can think through of any questions you may have. I nudge for questions, by the way, just because I don't want our hour together to be interesting, motivational. I'm not interested in any of that. I want it to be actionable, that you can take it away and apply it this evening, tomorrow morning, before you light the menorah. So that's why I'm always nudging for questions, because I want people to own it. I want you guys to walk away with it in your bag. So let me go over the 10 main topics we're going to discuss tonight. We're going to discuss the importance of writing things down. I'm going to try and sell you on the importance of having generic lists. Don't worry, I'm going to explain everything in detail, give examples. I'm going to be pushing that when you write things down, you divide your tasks into categories. I don't want you having a long list of 200 to-dos. going to discuss how to make phone calls. I'm going to push you with Google Calendar. I'm going to help you establish protocol for upcoming events that you have invitations for. I'm going to try and sell you on having a clipboard. I believe in clipboards. I'm going to discuss bill paying, budgeting, and how do you get yucky tasks done. Okay, so of these 10, try and think as I go through which 2 areas are causing the most stress that you would like to dive into. Now, many of the mums that I meet have areas of their lives that they're so organized that they could write a book and I would read that book. So by no means am I thinking that everyone who's listening tonight and who's listening to the recording is, a failure in losing it in every area. Generally speaking, we have areas that we shine and areas that are just hard. So try and listen to the areas that are hard for you so that you can make your life simple. Like I always tell other people and myself is that if it was simple, I would be doing it already. Okay, I've never needed any guidance or directions over getting my chocolate bars eaten. They all get done. I don't lose them. I don't forget where I'm up to. I never need practice. But other areas of my life, I had to learn it and write a whole book. Okay, so let's begin. So first of all, many people say to me, what do I do with all the tasks that I have in my head? From, buying new items to making appointments. There's just so many items that float around in our head. And if I were to give you a dark room and a pen and a paper, well, you'd probably fall asleep. But after you've had a nap, you would probably be able to write down 200-300 items of things that were in your head. And here's something very, very interesting. What's interesting is that studies were done and the amount of items that we can hold in our working memory is nowhere near 100 or 200. It's 7 items that we can hold in our working memory and not forget. So that's why I tell myself and others to write everything down, because it's just too much to carry it around. And our brains don't work like a computer. So let's say you are thinking, oh, I really need to take the recycling out. Like here, they do the recycling every 2 weeks. So if you miss a slot, then you've got a backload. Oh, I really have to do that. So let's say I need to put the recycling out every other Wednesday night. My brain doesn't remember on a Wednesday night to bring it out. My brain will remember a Monday night at 3 o'clock in the morning and wake me up. Our brains, when they're overloaded like that, work like a faulty alarm clock. They just start ringing at the wrong times. So there's 2 reasons why I want you to write things down. One is to free up your head for those 7 items that I really want you to remember. And 2, so that you don't get these false alarms where you're woken up in the middle like, oh my goodness, I have to make a dentist appointment for a kid. Or, oh my goodness, I totally forgot this. I don't want you doing that. I don't want your adrenal glands in overload. And 2, I want things to get taken care of. And how can we take care of things if we're always remembering them at the wrong time? So first things first, get a notepad. Don't worry about a fancy planner. Right now, get one notepad. You probably have one somewhere, and commit to write things down when it comes to mind. You might be a tech person. No problem. Pull open a Google Keep. It's an app. Google has an app called Google Keep. Just write it down there. Okay. What I don't want you doing is writing in 8 different notebooks or having 8 different Google Keep Post-it notes open. I want one place for everything. And you'll say, yeah, I'm a pen and paper person, but when I'm out and about, no problem, have 2, but 2, not 7. Okay. Write things down. And that's an amazing habit to have, because then your head's not going to feel like it's overbrimming, and you will be able to remember those 7 items effectively. And for point number 3, I'm going to discuss with you how to do this. So if you're not able, for example, to do what I'm going to say in point number 3, then what I would ask you to is write everything down, and then the night before, that we discussed last week how the morning begins the night before, take a highlighter pen and highlight 8 different items, that you want to get done tomorrow. Okay, now make sure that they're not writing a whole long thing. Make sure your items are 10 or 15-minute item. Highlight 8 of them. And then during the day, when you have pockets of time, you'll be able to look at the first thing that's highlighted and execute it. Next thing, execute it. Then you get distracted or a baby needs you. No problem. Later on, go back, go through the next thing, execute it, highlight it. Because sometimes what happens is we have so little time to get things done, so much on our brain. We sit down and we're like, okay, I have 20 minutes. What shall I do? Everything talks to you. You want to do everything. So it gets so overwhelming that you just check your friends' photos on Facebook because your brain's on overload. So by writing it down, getting out of your head, identifying ahead of time, then going in order and just taking care of stuff, you've really maximized your chances of actually getting things done. And productivity is nothing more glorious than just identifying what needs to get done and doing it. That's it. That's all productivity is. There's nothing, you don't need fancy names for stuff and 3-month plans and 5-year goals. You just need to write down what you need to get done and do it. It's like losing weight. It's really, really simple. Just eat less. We make it so complicated. That's what being productive is. So that's your first really good piece of solid advice of how to get more stuff done. Okay, so that would be number 1. Then I'm actually going to go to number 3. I'm going to go into a different format of how you could do this, and then I'll go back to number 2. So number 3 is divide your tasks into categories. Okay, so there's, let's say, 3 different types of people. One type of person will write things down, get it off of her mind, and then the next day she'll just glance through that list and cherry pick. That's fine. Remember, it's very, very rare to find one way of anything that's going to work for everyone. Then there's another type of person that will say, you know what? I wrote it down, I lost the notebook, but the fact that I wrote it down helped me not keep it in my head. Okay, go figure. There's research shows that just writing things down, even if you lose the list, works. I don't know. Then number 3 is someone who says, okay, I have an hour. I have a little bit more time than the lady next door. Tell me how to be more organized. No problem. So then what I would tell you to do is get a piece of paper and draw a line down it. Do it like make a line down and a line across. So you have 4 boxes. And then I would challenge myself to divide my life into 4 boxes. So maybe it would be something like children, work, house, trying to think of something else, mummy list. Okay, let's say you're going to be really good about self-care. So then you would write down everything that comes to mind. And as it comes to mind, you would put it into one of those 4 categories. Okay, so slowly you're going to fill up those 4 categories. And then instead of spending 1 hour, which is a luxury, and many of us don't have an hour, but I'm just using it for example, just instead of spending 1 hour going through your task, what you would do is take your hour and divide it in 4. So each of those 4 segments would get 15 minutes of your attention. So you could go through as you sit down and say, okay, I'm going to do those 3 things in that column, those 3 things in that column, do that, and then set your timer. I'm a big believer in timers. I think I discussed that last week. Set your timer 15 minutes. Do everything in a section of children, let's say. Okay, get as much as you can done. Cross it off. Always cross things off. It feels so great. Do that. Timer goes beep. Go on to the next segment. Oh, this is my work. Great. I'll do 15 minutes of that. Then another 15, another 15. And what you would have done is taken care of those 4 different departments of your life. Now, it's not going to be exciting because you still have 12 more items in each of those quadrants that you really want to get done. Well, who knows? Maybe you'll be able to fit an hour in the evening. Who knows? Then you would do the same thing again. And here's the beauty is you're slowly going to get through those tasks. Now, yes, new tasks are going to come in, but you're slowly understanding, like we said with the pilot, you've taken care of the landing gear, you've taken care of the peanuts, you've taken care of seat cleaning, you've taken care of the different areas of your life, of your home. So it's another way to get things done. Now, some of you may say, I just like writing a list. It works for me. Wonderful. We never change something that works for you. Other people will really appreciate this way. I can't tell you what way is going to work for you. Just try it. Try it and you will either feel frustrated or you'll feel liberated. If you feel frustrated, do it a different way. If you feel liberated, do more of it. Okay, that's the beauty of dividing your tasks into categories. Some of you may feel dividing it into categories just makes it confusing. Wonderful, don't do it. It just depends on your workload, your work style, what you've got going on, how you function best. Okay, now we're going to go back to number 2. Please remember to ask any questions in the box as we go along. It doesn't have to be on this exact topic, but try and keep it in the genre of CEO type discussion. So now we're going to discuss generic lists. And I began to be a big fan of generic lists about 5 years ago when I realized I'm a real pen and paper person. But I realized I was writing out too many things too many times. I'm always looking for ways to work smarter. And a great example of this would be the generic Erev Shabbos list. You know, the items that you want to get done an hour before Shabbos or earlier. Put on the hot water, the lights, whatever you do. Let's say those 12 items. And I was always writing them down and doing 80% and forgetting 20% till I made an Erev Shabbos list. And it was liberating to be able to just check it off. And the beauty of a list is it takes a few weeks to get it right. Like you'll write down, let's say 80%, and you'll be like, wait, I didn't even write down tissues or whatever, just add to it. And within a few weeks, you'll have a really robust list. And then every Erev Shabbos, it can just pop up. If you do it on Google Keep, you can actually set a time for it to pop up, or you can look it up yourself. And it's so much easier to go through your list than to think. So once it worked with my Erev Shabbos list, I started doing a morning routine, like things that I try and do in the morning before the kids get up. I did an evening routine, and even a basic Shabbos menu. Whatever makes you happy to think less, that's the area to make a generic list. Perhaps there's family members that you want to call every week, but you sometimes forget who you've called. Make a list and check it off as you go. You can do it on paper. You can do it on Google Keep. I'm actually going to type Google Keep into the message box because I just want you to be able to look it up. You just Google it and you download it, and it's little post-it notes that syncs with your computer to your phone, and it keeps everything current and live, and is very, very useful. So that would be a nice thing for generic lists. And you may say, where would I begin with my generic list? And by now you've heard me talk enough. Maybe you'll hear me speaking and say the area that causes you stress. That's a great way to have a generic list so you don't have to think. We want you to work as much as possible and think as little as possible. So I see we have a question. Every time I make a list, there are some things I never get to because they are the things I don't want to do. Of course, good. That means your brain is protecting you. And I'm going to discuss that with number 10 when I say yucky tasks. Okay, so I'm gonna address this. And if I don't address it, if you could please message again. Now we're going to go on to number 4, which is phone calls. Okay, so there's 2 genres of phone calls, and they both have problems. The phone calls that we want to make to our friends, and rather than do the boring stuff, we want to just talk to people. And they're the hard phone calls that we don't want to make. So what do we do? So of course we want you to have time to talk to your friends and your family. And now with WhatsApp, you can, now so many of us are in quarantine in different ways. FaceTiming is, more precious than ever. But I want you to do your work first, and then later on in the day, make your phone calls and your FaceTime. I'd rather you work hard in the morning and then give yourself even an hour recess, whatever you want. Sit on the couch while the kids are playing, or however you do it when you come home from work, put on dinner and then chill, however it can work for you and your family and your work and time zones. But I wouldn't want people using, let's say, 2 hours in the morning on phone calls, because then before you know it, it's lunchtime. Before you know it, you're tired. The day goes, and the phone can be a really big distraction. So sorry, it's not nice to yawn at night. Then I get everybody else yawning. So that's what I want you to do with the phone calls that you really should make later on in the day. Then the phone calls that you don't want to make, the appointments that you have to make, or the teachers you have to call, or whatever the phone calls are, I would say, first of all, make sure you really have to make a phone call. Could you leave a voice note? Could you send a text? Could you write an email? If it's an appointment place, there a possibility of making appointments online? Who knows? Okay, so first of all, research and see if you have to make the phone call. And then what I would say is assess what type of person you are when you can make phone calls. If you don't like them, some people like making phone calls. I don't like making phone calls. So what I try and do is early in the morning, let's say 9:30, between, I don't know, let's say 9:30 till 9:45, I try and make phone calls, because there's a rule that when something's yucky, you don't want it hanging over your head all day. You want to condense it into a very short amount of time. So let's say 9:30 to 9:45 is your phone call slot, and you do that every day. These are for the yucky phone calls. You can really square away tons of phone calls if you just use that 15 minutes, because it seems like you've got a whole list of phone calls you don't want to make, but you've got a backlog. So let's say you make 2 or 3 phone calls in that 9:30 zone every day. Set your timer. Literally, like the minute the timer goes beep, you finish up that phone call. But then if you do 3 every morning, even just 4 mornings a week, that's 12 phone calls a week. Maybe you're not a morning person. Maybe when you drive or you drive to pick up the kids, that's a good time. Some people love talking in the car, some people hate talking in the car, some people like walking and talking. Everyone's different. Try and ask yourself when it's the best for you and execute it, right? Keep a list of the phone calls that you have to make and find a time to do them. Some people might prefer a full hour once a week. Great. Monday morning from 10 to 11 is your phone calls. Wonderful. And then when you're done with that 1 hour, you're done for the week. Who knows? But try and think of a way to condense it rather than having it on you. I really should call this one. I really should call that one. Condense it into a 15-minute segment every morning or every evening or every afternoon or 1 hour a week. But understand that phone calls are annoying, but they're a necessary part of life. So see what you can do to minimize that. Okay, onwards we go to Google Calendar. So I assume that amongst the group, we have some people that like using a paper calendar, some people that like using Google Calendar. I just want to try and push you to use Google Calendar. So Google Calendar, just going to give you an overview. I'll assume that no one knows about it. Is like its name. It's run by Google, so it's going to have a very good user interface and be very simple. And basically, it's set up to be your friend. Okay, so you're not going to write down necessarily tasks that you have to do. Even though they have that feature, I think it gets confusing. This is for your reminders. This is like we spoke about earlier with the recycling every week. This is where you would write down every other Wednesday night at 7 o'clock, take out recycling. This is where you would write down appointments. This is where you would write down any, like as if it were an appointment calendar. You write it down there. You can have things be repeated. So you would write down without recycling Wednesday, then you would write down repeat every 2 weeks. These are the things, this is where you can have an assistant working for you so that you can think less. When we spoke about that generic list, oh no, that wouldn't work there. But it's your reminder. Let's say you call a cousin every Thursday night. Put it down there. Help your brain to think less, but don't overstuff Google Calendar or else it doesn't work well. Some people like to color code it, keep it very, very simple, but it's very nice for you to be able to have something and it can actually pop up on your phone. You can set it to remind yourself, let's say 10 minutes before, half an hour before, the day before, however it is. But you can do that with Google Calendar. So, and if you're confused by it, go onto YouTube and watch a video. There's not a specific one I recommend, but they make it very simple. So it really is an amazing tool because it, again, like Google Keep, it can sync with your phone to your computer. And you can just watch more YouTube videos to, up your game. But there's some really, really clever things you can do. Let's say you're meeting somebody for business or for coffee, you can share an invite with them, which is great because that way if one of you has to cancel, then when it reminds you, it's an easier cancellation, it's an earlier cancellation. So it helps to keep your day very streamlined. You can see what you have going on, and it can also just help with reminders. And I find that very, very useful. So that's the pitch for Google Calendar. Now I'm going to discuss something else. I'm going to discuss events. Okay. So for right now, we're in Zoom land. So unfortunately, we're having Zoom bar mitzvahs, Zoom weddings. I mean, every area is different, but it's less stressful. At one point, it was very stressful remembering all the different children's birthday parties, events to go to. If you've got kids in the bas mitzvah or the bar mitzvah years, it gets very chaotic. So what you want to have, regardless of, now's a great time to practice because there's low volume, is what happens when someone gets an invitation? What's the protocol? So my children know they have to give me the invitation or forward me the invitation, or else I don't know what's going on. So that's the process. Some families have a pin board where the family knows, put the invitation on the board. If it's not there, I don't know it's there. Now it's much more technological, but have it there. Your job would be to that information from when the kids give it to you or when you get a wedding invitation, and you put that into your Google Calendar or your wall calendar, however you run your life. But at least there's a process, so there's less drama of you finding out last minute that there's an event that the kids have to go to or you have to go to, and you're left scrambling for a babysitter or for coverage or for a gift. It takes away the drama. So if you can have a standard protocol for your family that they know what to do when they get an invitation, whether it's in paper or on the phone, then you're streamlining and you can look ahead and say, oh no, we have a conflict. How can we work this out? There's two places that we have to be at the same time. How do we do that? It's so much easier when these things are ahead of time. But have that process for the events that come in. God willing, the pandemic will be over soon and we'll be back to regular. And you'll need a way to record all these events that are coming up. Okay, now, not seeing any questions. I'm nudging for questions. Now I'm going to try and sell you the beauty of a clipboard. So I have a clipboard. I have many clipboards. I buy them in Target. And what I like to do, and this is really, it's very low, it's very low key, but it's very, very useful for me. I just keep one or two pieces of plain paper on it, and I'll sketch out my following day the night before. Even though I have it all on Google Calendar, I like to write it out so I can eyeball it and sometimes move things around, or sometimes see like, oh, I'm going to a doctor's appointment with my son. I would actually like to bring that doctor cake. Oh, I'll go defrost some cake batter tonight so I can do that. So I kind of gives you a way to streamline through the day, see what you want to get rid of, see what you want to get accomplished. And I like to do it in a black pen, and I just like to cross things off as they get done. So yeah, I have Google Calendar, and that's great for retaining the information. But for me, for anyone who's very visual, it's very simple. If it's just in front of me, things don't get forgotten that way. Things are highlighted ahead of time that are important. Let's say I had to get something in the mail. If it's just on a Google Keep somewhere, I might not get to it. If I see it right there, must send this out, and I can see when I can fit it in, works out so much easier than kind of diving into your day and trying to do things as you go. So I found that to be like the most low key and highly effective way of eyeballing my day the night before. Okay, I'm going to carry on. So bill paying, when do we pay the bills? Okay, so I like to suggest that people pay bills as rarely as possible. I would say if you can, pay your bills every 2 weeks. Set a night that you take an hour and you go through. So during those 2 weeks, anything that comes in, you put to a side. The smaller bills, maybe you can put on automated payment just so it's less work for you. Obviously, you don't want the big bills going there and messing up your system. But things that are annoying, why should you do it every week? I think for most people, if you have it twice a month, you won't miss any deadlines, and you can make sure you have the funds for it, and it doesn't become big. I find that sometimes with some tasks, we're kind of telling ourselves, oh, I really have to do that. I really have to do that. And every night that you don't, because you're exhausted, you feel less than. If you know that's what you do every other Monday night when you can, it makes it so much easier. It makes it streamlined. You can look at the bills, see what you're doing extra, see, oh, maybe I can automate that, or why am I doing it like this? Keep on looking for ways to make it more and more streamlined so that it really gets quite simple. And of course, the first cousin of bill paying, is budgeting. Okay, so budgeting, I'm good at budgeting time. Budgeting finance took me a while to learn. Now I've learned it, and I use an app that I really recommend, and it's got a cute name. It's called YNAB, You Need a Budget, and it's a very good user interface. I think they give a 2-month trial, and it takes time to set up, but it's a very, very nice way of you seeing where your money is going. And it's a little overwhelming at the beginning, but just like with time, when you can see where you're spending your time, you can move things around. Same too with your money, even if it's stressful and you, of course, you don't really want to see the details. Understanding where your money is going is so, so liberating. And so I would suggest, what I do is I take about 45 minutes early on a Sunday morning. That's my life right now. My baby's 11. That works for me. I go through money I've spent that month. There's different categories. I can see where I'm overspending, where I'm doing well, and it really helps keep me very, very accountable. And that is something, honestly, that I wished I would have become fluent in early on. I've just been doing it for a few years. So I would love it if any of you could try that, because you really might enjoy the clarity that comes with it. And also I would say that if you want, you can again look on YouTube for videos of how it works, and it's a very user-friendly, very realistic, and I felt a lot of freedom from doing it. You would think that it would kind of feel suffocating, but I felt a lot of freedom. So managing time, managing money, it's all about kind of taking a look at the areas that we don't really want to look at, but then we get freedom, because there's a saying, what gets measured gets managed. How can we organize those areas of our lives, our physical space, our time, our money, if we're not looking at the details, right? So, and it's not so comfortable at the beginning, but generally speaking, when things are uncomfortable, it's a good thing. Okay, we have this thing. Okay, thank you. Another great app or website is called Clarity Money. Lovely. I love the title. So anything that brings you closer to that's funny. I just had a note here from Michal that you've got 2 great talks coming up on financial planning, education with someone very good, Stephanie Genkin. So wonderful. That I didn't know that. I just wanted to touch on it. So maybe hold off on that. Hold off on that until you hear from Stephanie, because she's an expert and she'll give you some excellent advice, I'm sure. And then the last area that I wanted to touch on, which Shira mentioned earlier, is like, what about the tasks I don't want to do? And I think that's a very, very valid question, especially when they're really big. So what I try and do personally is I try and find one yucky task a day. I'll keep a running list of yucky tasks on Google Keep, anything that comes to mind that I have to take care of. And then I will define at the beginning of the week, that's something that could go on your Google Calendar. Go on your Google Calendar, 2 p.m. on Sunday, define yucky task for this week. I'll be like, you know what? I really have to take care of this and this. I'm going to do that. And that's what I know for that week is something that when I have a moment here or there, or maybe I'll break it into smaller tasks, that's what I want to get done. And then on Wednesday night, I'll put another note in my calendar. Did you finish yucky tasks? That will kind of give me a reminder and enable that by the end of that week, that yucky task will get done. And why do we want to do yucky tasks? Because your life will get easier when you can take care of these big things. It's scary at the beginning, but once we push through that fear, that's where the good stuff happens. So it definitely is in your interest to go through the yucky stuff, because after a while, your the fear that you would be carrying over not doing the yucky tasks is, let's say, 8 out of 10 frustrating, but actually taking care of one at a time is, let's say, 4 out of 10 frustrating. So you would have made a profit at the end of the week, maybe not at the beginning of the week, but over time. That's how you live a streamlined, more simple life, is by addressing these things. You wouldn't do 10 yucky tasks in one day, but one a week or one every 2 weeks sounds quite manageable. So let me give you an overview, because we've gone through our 10 points. I've heard too much of my voice. I wish we had more questions, but it's fine. It's Erev Hanukkah, and I'm sure everyone's very pensive. So I'll give you an overview, and then Michal will tell me what to do. So we spoke about how important it is to have as little in our mind as possible, right? We'll be lighting our menorahs tomorrow night, and you need to light the menorah on a stable base, or else it doesn't burn strong. And the same with us. We can't be all over the place. We need to be anchored and stable. And the way to do that is have tricks up our sleeves to work smarter, not harder. So here we discussed 10 of the main areas that we can work smarter, not harder, as CEOs of our Mikdash Mat. We discussed the importance of writing everything down. We said how the working memory can hold 7 items and we hold hundreds. Then we spoke about, when we can, if it's your style, even take a paper and divide it in quarters and define 4 areas of your life and write down the tasks involved in that quadrant, and give each quadrant 15, 20 minutes, maybe half an hour. Who knows? Maybe you'll do 1 quadrant each day, whatever works for you. Highlight the most important things. Put your phone away. Take your phone away. Like, if you want to try and have your phone next to you, pinging away and getting work done efficiently, it doesn't work like that. Take your phone into a different room, put on airplane mode, and go through those items. We spoke about phone calls, how to try and minimize the fun phone calls for a reward, and to maximize the yucky phone calls by doing it in a small segment, maybe half an hour a week, maybe 15 minutes a day, however it is, but to not feel bad if you're not doing phone calls constantly. We spoke about Google Calendar. It's a great place to put appointments that you could share with other people and reminders. And we spoke about how every home needs a process for when events happen. What do we do? What does your child do with an invitation they have in the house? Let's discuss more things. Okay, we discussed a clipboard. I told you how I personally love to have a clipboard with a couple of pieces of paper, and I plan the next day. I leave space between every item that I try and do to try and give myself wiggle room to put things in different niches. We spoke about bill paying. Don't do it often. Try and do it every 2 weeks. Try and automate the smaller ones. I spoke about the YNAB budgeting app. What Michal said, there's another one called Clarity Money, and you've got some awesome webinars coming up on that. And I spoke about yucky tasks. Write your list of yucky tasks, and then try and do 1 a week or 1 every 2 weeks. It's much better you do 1 every week or 1 every 2 weeks than none ever. Okay, so here, let's discuss now, Michal, nice pointer to discuss phones. Okay, so here's the problem with phones. The problem with a phone is it's really a mini computer, and really we could sit on the couch and be busy for about 20 hours a day between the text, the WhatsApp, the videos, the emails, and all the other things. And the problem is that it's incredibly distracting. I'm not even talking about the raise in anxiety and depression and the FOMO. I'm just talking about productivity. Very, very difficult. It's very hard when I tell people, please sit down and do an hour's work, and their phone's pinging every 4 minutes. You don't have focus, and you need focus to get things done. Some people have ADD. Some people have phone-induced ADD because they're just all over the place. So this is like a rule that I want to roll out for everyone. Take 45 minutes, put your phone in airplane mode, do the work you need to get done, then sit on the couch for 15 minutes. So much better to take a full 15 minutes on the couch, check Instagram, check whatever you want, but give yourself the gift of those 45 minutes of work. Whether you're working in the kitchen, tidying up, playing with the kids, whatever you're doing, Yes, check your phone every hour. You want to be brave, do every 2 hours, every 3 hours. You want to be really brave, do a phone detox and check your phone every 5 hours. But please understand that your phone is not your friend. It's not your friend. It's really taking your focus. Some people really, really get dizzy. They just don't know what's going on because they're not truly present. They're in front of their computer trying to do stuff, but their phone's pinging the whole time, so they're not truly present. And please remember that your phone is not your friend. I would much rather you work for an hour, take a 20-minute break, or work for 2 hours, take a half-hour break. Do what you want. If you're so addicted, it doesn't matter. Everybody is. But don't think you can be a productive person and have your phone pinging the whole time. It doesn't work. It's just not fair on our brains. If your phone requires you to make a lot of calls, that's a different question. If you work from home, it might be worth getting a landline so you can actually just use your phone as a telephone and not as a computer. I don't know. I'm sure there's ways to take things off your phone, take email off your phone, it's a shame because before I would tell people to take email off the phone, but now we have WhatsApp that's basically, oxygen. You can't do without it. So at least with WhatsApp, go off as many groups as you can. I'm on very, very, very few groups. Do what you can. But please remember that your phone is not your friend. If the home cleaning schedule that I sent out last week looks too intimidating, great. Look at the day and choose 3 things you want to do. Or just lower the bar, make things easier. It's always better to have smaller steps that you can attain than big ones that you can't. And it was just a guide. It was just a guide for people to play with and see and try on and see what fits for them. Okay. You would batch phone call time. Yes, absolutely. Batch the phone call time. Okay. So I think this is pretty much a wrap up. Unless we have any more questions. So I had wanted to go a little longer, but I guess we didn't get the questions. I guess everyone's scribbling down notes. So that is wonderful. So I'm going to say good evening. You're more than welcome to reach me through Michal if you have further questions or something. It's my pleasure. Thank you for joining this 2-session workshop. And if you're listening to recordings, I hope you enjoyed them. And yeah, okay, so we have a last minute question. Okay, what about meal planning? Okay, we addressed that last week. We went through it last week. I'll tell you just answering on one foot, and Michal has a very nice handout I made, like an outline I made. Just have a look what you made for the past month. Write down an ideal week, and then maybe another week. If you're creative, you might say to yourself, oh, okay, I'll do chicken on Mondays and I'll do it in different ways. So at least you'll organize the protein. Some people really, really don't mind serving the same thing every week. So see what you can do to just give yourself, maybe you can have on a piece of paper a meal plan for the weeks that you just don't want to think and a shopping list to go with it. Just make it really simple. And I'm very happy. Someone said here that they organized the kids' clothes. That makes me very happy. Good. Okay, ladies, I'm gonna turn over to Michal. I'm gonna say happy Hanukkah to everyone. And thank you. Thank you very, very much. Okay, over to you, Michal.
Thank you so much, Rivka. Everyone here was commenting how clear you were. I said, do you guys have questions? And they said, so clear. She's so clear. So first of all, I wanted to share, everybody, Rivka gave us a few signed copies. So if you'd like one, I have one here for you. And please be in touch with me. Also, Living Chassidus, funny that you mentioned this. A few years ago, we gave this as a prize. It's called Tafkid for Today, and it literally has 7 points.
I love it. I love it. Working memory. I love it. Yes. Well done you. Well done you. Perfect.
Anyway, I think you have a few more questions if you want to. Oh, what's the book called? The book called is From Frazzled to Focused. It's right here.
I think for the Crown Heights, they have it in Hamifits or Amazon, good old Amazon.
Yes, and we have it here at Living Chassidus, signed by the author. So be in touch with Michal about that. And with that, Rivka, are you up for another picture with us?
Oh, sure.
Yay. Okay, let me just set it up.